What's up, everybody, and welcome to XSTEM All Access. My name is Justin Schaefer. I'm also known as Mr. Fascinate, and I'm excited to be back as your host for this multi-day series filled with STEM inspiration. Today is Earth Day, and the third day of exciting new XSTEM episodes brought to you by the USA Science and Engineering Festival. The mission of the USA Science and Engineering Festival is to inspire the next generation to pursue careers in STEM. You can check out their other free programs and events for teachers and students at usasciencefestival.org. Before we begin, please join me in thanking our partners AstraZeneca, the U.S. Air Force, and the U.S. Department of Defense DoD STEM for making this XSTEM series possible. Don't forget to mark your calendar for this time tomorrow, April 23rd, for our final episode of XSTEM All Access. Over the course of the series, we've been getting up close and personal with a number of STEM trailblazers. Today, we explore aviation. We'll get out of our seats and dance to some STEM tunes, and we'll be answering your previously submitted questions during the program. But don't worry, if you have more questions during the show, send them to us using the form at usasciencefestival.org, and we'll get those answers to you after the program. It's Earth Day, and what better way to spend it than with some incredible STEM role models who have seen our planet from all kinds of views. Before we jump in, let me tell you a little bit more about myself. So as Mr. Fascinate, I've traveled all over the world pre-COVID and excited young people just like you about STEM and STEM careers. I've launched the Magic Cool Bus project, my STEM app that's coming up that's going to excite you all about STEM, and my cartoon series Hood Science, all things out there that will inspire you all to pursue STEM careers. All right, I'm coming to you from New York City, but you all are representing the entire globe. Today we have attendees from DC, Virginia, Idaho, California, Kentucky, Oregon, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, Utah, Florida, Washington State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and more. Plus, international attendees are joining us from Botswana, Germany, India, Costa Rica, Canada, Jamaica, Mexico, the Philippines, and more. Welcome to everyone. Wherever you're joining us from today, make sure you also join the Show Us How You STEM activity on social media. Tag at USA Science Fest and me at Mr. Fascinate and use the hashtag ShowUsHowYouSTEM. You can share your science projects, show how you explore nature, and how you're being an ambassador to our planet. Or anything else. Show us how you STEM. Grab your phone and take a selfie while tuning in today. Speaking of selfies, there'll be an opportunity for a virtual selfie with me during today's program. So have your camera on standby. Don't forget to share and tag us to show us how you STEM. Now, let's get started with today's program. Our theme today is high altitude inspiration. We're going to meet two amazing individuals with some surprising life stories that led them to aviation. First, we'll hear from an inspiring U.S. Air Force aviator, Major J. Park. Then, we'll hear from record-breaking pilot Captain Barrington Irving. Later in the program, we'll hear a special message from Dr. JihnFen, Acting Director of Defense Research and Engineering for Research and Technology at the U.S. Department of Defense. And in between, we'll rock out to some Earth Day raps from our friends Mr. D and Mr. QUE of Music Notes. Now, let's get started. I'm excited to introduce our first speaker, Major J. Park. Major J. Park is a U.S. Air Force aviator and Director of Operations at the Randolph Air Force Base in Texas. Major Park is a South Korean-born immigrant who overcame many obstacles to achieve his highest goals and become an aviator who's traveled all over the world. Major J. Park, welcome to our program.
Hey, thank you, Justin, for the introduction, and thank you to all the people that are part of this conference. It's a real pleasure for me to be here and speaking with you.
Appreciate you, Major Park. Looking forward to your presentation.
Yeah, looking forward to it. First of all, I just want to say thanks to all the students for being part of this and allowing me to share my story in hopes that it will inspire you to continue to overcome your challenges and be the person that you desire to be. So as Justin alluded to, I started as an immigrant born and raised in South Korea. When I was 8 years old, I moved from Korea all the way to Moore, Oklahoma. I know it's shocking, but there are a few Asian communities out there in the middle of nowhere of US. But big thing for me was that, I had to learn a new language, assimilate into a culture that I was unfamiliar with, and continue to try to keep up with the other kids in terms of learning and, meeting the challenges that were ahead of me. But what also made it pretty difficult for me personally is that I had a father who was schizophrenic, bipolar, really struggled with communicating, and that led to sometimes violent outbursts. And my mother was kind of abused on and off. And that made things difficult, obviously, for a young man. And additionally, because we're immigrants, thankfully, my parents were both educated and college graduates. But when we came to the States, like most common immigrant story is that they had to start working, part-time jobs here and there. And ultimately, we ended up just cleaning offices. And so I think from the age of probably 11 or 12, I had to come home from work and go with my brother and my mom and my dad to go clean office buildings. And that probably took a couple of hours every day. And then at least one time on the weekend, whether it was Friday night or Saturday night or Sunday night, we had to go do a massive cleaning of an entire building that took probably upwards of 5 or 6 hours. So that was challenging for sure. And overcoming those things, I just had to rely on my faith and my family to get to where I wanted to be. And it really, truly, not by what I've done, but also being surrounded by people who loved me, who took care of me as well, that have gotten me to this current state. So just a background, as you can see on the slides, that's my hometown. As I discussed, I grew up in Korea and then lived in Moore, Oklahoma. And when I graduated high school, I couldn't wait to leave, to be honest with you. But because of money issues that we had to deal with, I ended up staying home and went to the University of Oklahoma. And from there, I actually wasn't interested in the military per se. I just need that I was decent at math. And so I figured I could be an engineer. Now, I'll just tell you, like most Asian parents, they asked me, you should go pursue to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever the case was. But I just figured, the best job that I could probably get into was maybe an engineer. So when I started school, I needed some more money. So my freshman year is when I decided to reach out to some of the ROTC units to see if they would help fund my education. And thankfully, U.S. Air Force was the only ROTC detachment that was willing to sit down and have a conversation with me. And I had to take my entire second year and basically audit the courses for Air Force ROTC. And then after about a year, I had to maintain a 3.0 GPA in my aerospace engineering degree. And then after that whole year of auditing, they allowed me to apply for the scholarship, and I got that. As I was during college, obviously some challenges as well of, being part of a program. I had to wake up early. I had to, do a lot of physical fitness tests, but also try to maintain a GPA in an engineering degree. But what I realized is that after about third year of engineering classes, I wanted to do something more active. And again, Air Force provided that opportunity for me to be able to fly. And after a little bit of a summer training that the Air Force provided, I ended up doing pretty well. And I was offered a navigator slot. So from then on, if you go to the slides, I'll kind of show you my journey in the Air Force career. Yep, second slide, please. Yep, so after 2001 of graduating from my high school, I went to college and I ended up commissioning through Air Force ROTC in 2005. And I ended up going down to Florida and had my first opportunity to solo an aircraft. So that was in 2006, so very shortly after that. About a year and a half later, I got my wings and I became an official Air Force Aviator, and that's my graduation in 2007. After I graduated, I got selected to go fly F-15s, so I went on to do that. And in 2009, I was basic qualified in the F-15E as a weapons systems officer, basically the backseat of the F-15. From then, I went to England, where I got to fly F-15s, and I did my first deployment in 2010. Went to Afghanistan and had a 5-month deployment out there and supporting our troops on the ground. And that was, yeah, just a great experience, something that I always remember. Moving on to the next slide. So 2012, the last year that I was flying the Strike Eagle, I got to deploy to a place called Djibouti. It's in Africa. And it's kind of supporting the similar operations that we're doing over in the Middle East. I got to leave there and fly the T-38. So in 2013, we moved to Texas and started to fly the T-38. And I flew that for about 4 years. And I taught young pilots who were on their way to fly fighter aircraft basic fundamentals of flying and employing aircraft. 2016 was a big deal for me, where I got to promote as a major. And then that same year, I got to get stationed over in Korea. So back where my life started, the Air Force was fortunate or allowed me to get to that place where was hometown for me. I got to spend 2 years there, and I still have distant relatives there. So that was a great time for me, my wife, and our family. But specifically during that time in 2017, I actually got to fly, or sorry, not fly, but sail on the USS Michigan, which is a submarine, the biggest submarine we have in the US inventory. And I got to sail on that thing for 8 days. So one of the experiences that I'll never forget as a flyer, no less, to be able to do something like that. And then moving on from that, I got to go to Pensacola, where I started my training. I got to instruct in the T1 there for a few years. And during that time in 2019, I got to go and be witness to one of the very last Doolittle Raider who passed away. And he was 90 plus years old. And he was part of the raid in World War II, where they took off bombers for the first time off of a aircraft carrier. And so it's a storied event that we always talk about in our Air Force, and got to be able to be part of that memorial. So that's a special part for me. And now currently, as I sit, I am a director of operations of our Air Force Recruiting Service Detachment 1, where I get to speak with amazing individuals like you, to inspire you, to share my story, in hopes that you guys see a little something in me that you see of yourself. And I just want you to continue to press on and meet the challenges that are ahead of you. And hopefully you get to be in positions like me or even greater. So thank you for your time. I am so grateful to be able to share my story, and I hope that it was a benefit to you.
Major Park, thanks so much for sharing that perspective. I absolutely think our audience will benefit from hearing that. You spoke about your journey, immigrating into America, having to learn a new language, going into the Air Force and balancing your GPA with staying physically fit, and then rising in the ranks of the U.S. Air Force, which it sounds like you had a really inspiring journey, went through a lot of trials and tribulations to become who you are today. So thanks for sharing that. Let's jump right on into Q&A. Some of our audience members sent in their questions before the show, and we have a few students that'll be joining us with those questions. So here's our first question from a 5th grader in California.
Hi, Major Park. I'm wondering what is the fastest speed you've ever flown?
Yeah, okay, that's awesome. I appreciate that question. I think we get a lot of that as a person who's gotten to fly fighter aircraft. And obviously, as you know, most of our U.S. aircraft fighters can go over Mach 1, which is roughly about 700 miles an hour plus, depends on altitude. But in our very, I would say the third flight ever that I've ever flown in an F-15, we got to go out there and we do a mission called aircraft handling characteristics flight. And that's where you basically get to do all the things that you want to in the aircraft. So you get to go slow, you get to go fast, you get to climb high, you get to fly low, spin the jet around, do loops in the sky. It's amazing. And we go out there just for an hour, basically to get familiar with how the aircraft flies. And that was probably when I went the fastest. I went probably about 1.2 Mach. The aircraft itself can fly much faster than that, but we obviously don't push those limits unless we absolutely have to for emergencies or while we're in combat. So for me personally, I got to fly 1.2 Mach, which roughly equates to probably 800 plus miles an hour.
Wow, that's really interesting, Major Park. So quick question about that. When you're flying at that speed, I know you break the sound barrier. I heard at least that as a pilot, you feel the resistance before you break the sound barrier. And then once you go past the speed of sound, it's like a smoother flight. Is that true?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the characteristics of the aircraft itself. So as you break the sound barrier, there are certain points of the aircraft that actually break the sound barrier before the entire aircraft does. But in our aircraft, it's almost impossible to tell really a big difference. But again, as it compresses the air, as you get closer to that Mach, it does have a small feel of maybe resistance. But once you break through, it's kind of, nice and easy. And it feels like maybe you just hit a little bump in the road, but almost negligible.
Wow, that's fascinating. All right, well, we have another question here from Kaylee in San Diego coming right up.
Hi, my name is Kaylee from San Diego, and my question is, I want to know, what is the longest flight you've ever been on?
Yeah, another often question that gets asked, and for me, it's not too long. About 9.5 hours is the longest mission that I've ever done. And that was my mission while I was deployed to Djibouti. And we were hanging off in the coast east of Africa. And we had two big tanker aircraft that came and refueled us for about 6 hours. And it took about an hour and a half to get to that location, and then another hour and a half to get back. But just so you know, in a fighter aircraft, there's no restrooms. There's nowhere, I can walk up and, go somewhere. So in reality, 9.5 hours of just sitting in one place, trying to stay focused on the mission is what's challenging about that 9.5 hours.
Gotcha. Really interesting. Okay, it looks like Arlo from Oakland, California asked, what area of STEM should I study if I want to become a pilot?
Yeah, great question. To be honest with you, I was an aerospace engineer, and it probably helped me in the first maybe 1 month of academics during my 1.5 years long of training. So needless to say, our pilots can be any, you can study anything you want. And as long as you have a desire to succeed and be in an aircraft, you can do it. But if you want to be a test pilot or an astronaut in the future, I would highly recommend getting an engineering degree or a math degree. And that will really help you further your career if that's your aspirations. But if you just want to be an Air Force aviator, we don't have any of those STEM requirements.
Gotcha. Well, thanks so much, Major Park, for that super interesting insight. And thank you to everyone else who submitted their questions. That's all the time we have today for questions, unfortunately. But if you have another question for Major Park that we didn't cover today, send them to us now using the form at usasciencefestival.org, and we'll get Major Park's answers to you after the program. Major Park, it was an absolute pleasure learning about what you do, meeting you, and hearing about you overcoming adversity. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining us for today's program.
Thank you so much, Justin, and to the team.
Thanks again for your inspiring message, Major Park. Before we dive into our next speaker session, let's take a few minutes for a brain break. It's time to get out of our seats and jam with the incredibly talented duo David, Mr. D. Landix, and Lamar, Mr. QUE Queen, from Music Notes Online. So get up and get ready to move to celebrate Earth Day. Mr. D and Mr. QUE, take it away.
What's good, everyone? My name is Mr. QUE.
And I am Mr. D.
And we're excited to be a part of XSTEM All Access. Thank you to the USA Science and Engineering Festival, and welcome to our Brain Break.
We are math teachers, and we use music to teach things that are all STEM related.
That's right, and since today is Earth Day, we felt that it was only right to show our Earth Day video during this Brain Break. It will give you some tips that you can do to save our precious planet, so let's check out the video.
Celebrate Earth Day like a birthday. We can say the Earth, ayy, say the Earth, ayy. It takes a little work, ayy, little work, ayy. Get a tree planted down in the dirt, ayy. Celebrate Earth Day like a birthday. We can say the Earth, ayy, say the Earth, ayy. It takes a little work, ayy, little work, ayy. Reduce the use of plastic, it hurts the Earth, ayy. Celebrate Earth Day like a birthday. Reduce the use of plastic, it don't biodegrade. Clean schools, green schools, we need schools to teach renewable energy use. My act of green will save the Earth. I'll plant a tree down in the dirt. You can eat less meat to save the Earth. Reduce your footprint to save the Earth. Come on. Celebrate Earth Day like a birthday. We can say the Earth, ayy, say the Earth, ayy. It takes a little work, ayy, little work, ayy. Get a tree planted down in the dirt, ayy. Celebrate Earth Day like a birthday. We can say the Earth, ayy, say the Earth, ayy. It takes a little work, ayy, little work, ayy. Reduce the use of plastic, it hurts the Earth, ayy.
Celebrate Earth Day like a birthday. It's up to you and I to save the Earth. Let's make a change starting on Earth Day. This is what you can do to help save the world. Reduce your ecological footprint. You can walk, ride a bike, or carpool. For electronics, use the power strip because they use energy when they're not in use. Slow down on the use of plastic. Effects on the earth are drastic. Reduce pollution by using less plastic. When you shop, bring your own bag. Hey, this is what I'll do to help save the earth. Take shorter showers. I'm gonna plant a tree. No plastic cups. Even turn off the water when I brush my teeth. These are my acts of green.
Celebrate Earth Day like a birthday. We can say the Earth, ayy, say the Earth, ayy. It takes a little work, ayy, little work, ayy. Get a tree planted down in the dirt, ayy. Celebrate Earth Day like a birthday. We can say the Earth, ayy, say the Earth, ayy. It takes a little work, ayy, little work, ayy. Reduce the use of plastic, it hurts the Earth, ayy. Reduce the use of plastic is way beyond tragic. The ocean, full of great garbage patches. Somebody come plant a tree with me so we can have better air to breathe. Reduce your ecological footprint. Save the water and the land we're losing. And if you have an ecological dream, create your own act of green. It's on you, what you gon' do? Celebrate Earth Day like a birthday. We can say the Earth, ayy, say the Earth, ayy. It takes a little work, ayy, little work, ayy. Get a tree planted down in the dirt, ayy. Celebrate Earth Day like a birthday. We can say the Earth, ayy, say the Earth, ayy. It takes a little work, ayy, little work, ayy. Reduce the use of plastic, it hurts the Earth, ayy.
Let's all do our part to help preserve our planet.
Yep, every little thing counts, so let's help keep it clean. And if you like what you heard, you can follow us on Instagram at Music Notes Online. You can also visit our website, www.musicnotesonline.com.
We have over 150 songs and videos that are STEM related on our website, including a bunch of free videos.
That's right. Once again, I'm Mr. QUE.
And I am Mr. D. Peace.
Thank you, Mr. D and Mr. QUE, for helping us get up, move our feet, and celebrate Earth Day. Be sure to check out more of Music Notes songs and other resources for students at Music Notes Online. Guess what time it is now? It's virtual selfie time. I'll give you a second to get your phones ready. All right. I don't have all day. All right. Get ready to snap a picture with me. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to make a goofy one really quickly here and make a silly face with me if you can. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right. We can't take ourselves too seriously, right? Don't forget to share your selfies with us. Be sure to tag at USA Science Fest and tag me at Mr. Fascinate and use the hashtag #ShowUsHowYouSTEM. If you're just tuning in, we are soaring into today's episode on high altitude inspiration. I hope you're ready to meet our second speaker of the day. Can you imagine a job that takes you around the world? Our next speaker will tell you about how his job makes a difference all over the globe. Captain Barrington Irving is a record-breaking aviator and founder of the Flying Classroom. In 2007, Captain Irving became the youngest person and first Black pilot to fly solo around the world. Today, he uses his global adventures and expeditions to teach kids about STEM. Captain Irving, welcome to the program. How you doing?
Glad to be on. Glad to be on, Justin.
Awesome, man. I've been reading about you, nerding up on you, and you broke that record at 23, right?
Yes. Youngest person to fly around the world prior to me was 37, and I worked with a great group of people in order to pull this off. Before I begin and start, talking about a number of things, I first want you guys to check out this video, which basically kind of walks through my life in a very dynamic manner. So check this out.
At the age of 19, he learned to fly and forever touched the sky. At 21, he launched nonprofit Experience Aviation. At 23, he became by far the youngest person to fly around the world solo. At 24, he challenged 60 students to build an airplane and piloted its test flight. At 26, he received the NASA Trailblazer Award. At 28, he was one of 15 adventurers selected as a National Geographic Emerging Explorer. At 30, he launched Flying Classroom. He is a mentor, educator, humanitarian, and inspirational pilot. He is Captain Barrington Irving. Born in Kingston, Jamaica, raised in Miami's inner city, his life changed forever when he met Captain Gary Robinson.
He's an amazing football player. Already at that age, had colleges looking for him and was doing very well in school. And so I said, hey, have you ever thought about flying? He said, I'm not smart enough to fly.
And his response to me not only provoked interest in aviation, but that interest in aviation turned into passion.
Barrington comes to me one day and says, I want to be the youngest pilot and the first pilot to fly around the world solo.
When I met him, I basically said, what are you talking about that you want to fly around the world?
On March 23, 2007, Barrington took off in his Columbia 400 named Inspiration. 97 days later, on June 27th, he returned.
All of us in tears, just at the gift of him coming home safely.
And when I opened that cockpit door, I immediately knew that was my responsibility, was to empower young people. So what did I do? I literally surrounded myself with the business aviation community, and we started to create programs within Experience Aviation, STEM Plus programs. What the plus represents, how do you use aviation to achieve your highest self?
We knew that we had an opportunity to create a revolution in education, and I felt Barrington was that person.
How could we tie the real world into the classroom? I think that's exactly what he's doing.
Barrington always reaches to the next level.
Thank you, Barrington, for broadening my horizon on my outlook of aviation.
I wouldn't be where I am without Barrington as far as a line service technician.
Barrington Irving is a superhero, a trailblazer, relentless in changing the world for better.
Barrington touched thousands of young people's lives.
And I saw in the eyes of those kids that they had been changed.
I believe they too one day could be a Barrington Irving.
My parents sacrificed a lot, and then my wife and my kids, they believe and give me the opportunity to give to others.
The NBAA is proud to present the 2019 American Spirit Award to Captain Barrington Irving. Congratulations, Barrington.
Dream, live, fly.
Awesome. So that talks a little bit about me and my journey. We'll go on to the first slide because a lot of people might think, based upon my different accolades and stuff, that, I just naturally grew up this way. Let me tell you something. One of the things that has always been a challenge for me, especially when I was in school, is basically trying to figure out, why do I need to learn this stuff? When will I ever use this in life? I always ask myself those questions. So you'll see in the slide a picture of me preparing to eat a fruit bat. Part of what we do with Flying Classroom, part of what we do is we literally just travel the world practically exploring the things students have to learn, whether they're in elementary, middle, or high school. I want to know, right? Why do we need to learn these things? When will we ever use it in life? This bat, for example, we were able to really try to understand how does a virus practically pass from an animal to a human being. Now, I didn't start off this way. I'm based in Miami, Florida, and I grew up in 2 of the 3 worst neighborhoods in Miami. So I'll take you first through a little bit of a journey of my upbringing. I was born in Kingston, Jamaica, moved to Miami, Florida at the age of 6, grew up in 2 of the 3 worst neighborhoods in Miami. And while growing up, I was a pretty talented athlete. I played football for a team that was ranked #1, not only in the state of Florida, we were ranked #1 in the entire country. All I wanted to do, to be quite honest, was just play football and go to the NFL. That's what my dream was. But that changed, as you'll see in the next slide, when I was in a store minding my own business, but I was looking outside the store and I saw this guy step out of a nice, luxurious truck, dressed in this uniform, had no clue what he did or what his uniform represented. He had a nice watch on and nice bracelet. And I'm just looking at him saying to myself, this brother looks like he makes a ton of money. Had no clue what he did, but when he walked in the store, he saw that I was staring at him and he approached me. He said, "Hey son, have you ever thought about becoming a pilot?" I told him I did not think I was smart enough to fly an airplane, but I asked him one question. I said, "How much money do you make?" Now, this was way back in 2001. And his response to me said, "Son, I make $117 an hour." And I'll never forget looking up at him and I was like, "Legally?" And he was like, "Yeah, this is a real job. This is what I do." And that's how my interest in aviation began. Now we go on the next slide. Although I had the interest, I needed someone to push me. And this was my former high school teacher, Miss Batiste. Take a really close look at her face. You could probably tell Miss Batiste does not play around. She taught social studies. And I'll be honest with you, when I was in school, I really did not like Miss Batiste that much. But she saw much more potential in me than I even saw in myself. And while everyone was saying, "Barrington, go on and continue to play football," Miss Batiste would say to me, "Barrington, forget about football, pursue a career in aviation." And thanks to Miss Batiste, I ended up turning down my football scholarships and saying, "Hey, I want to pursue a career in aviation." As glamorous as it sounded, it was a really tough decision. My parents could not afford to send me to school. And of course, I turned down the football scholarship. So Miss Batiste helped me apply to my local community college. And then I transferred over to HBCU, Florida Memorial University, thanks to a teacher who I didn't really like that much at the time. This woman is still my mentor. Big shout out to all the teachers. We go on to the next slide. As I'm studying and trying to figure out how, I want to continue gaining my flight licenses, my mentor, Captain Robinson, challenged me to give back. And that's how this concept of flying around the world came about. And it was easy to say, but it was extremely difficult to get people to buy into it. What you see here on the screen is one of my rejection letters. That letter came from Coca-Cola. For 2.5 years, people told me no. We go on the next slide. You'll see, although many people told me no, I never gave up on my dream. This was the one pair of dress shoes I owned at the time. Notice how many holes I have in the bottom of those shoes. I actually saved those shoes till this day to remind me of where I came from, because I wore these shoes, as you'll see in the next slide, to major aviation events like this one, walking from booth to booth, trying to figure out how exactly will I be able to fly around the world. Of course, if you want to fly around the world, the first thing you need is an airplane, which you'll see next. And this was the aircraft I utilized to fly around the world. This plane cost $650,000. Of course, I could not afford the aircraft. I couldn't get anyone to rent me a plane, lease me one, let me borrow one, nothing. So I'll never forget of sitting down on my bedroom floor, frustrated. And then I had a light bulb moment. And I said to myself, hold on. When people steal cars, they bring it into our neighborhood and then they strip the car. Now, that car has different pieces that they take off of it and they sell it illegally. That's how I learned different companies make different parts of a car. So I said to myself, I wonder if different companies make different parts of a plane. Sure enough, that was the case. And I studied all the different companies who made different parts of this airplane. And I approached 42 different companies and got them to give me each part one by one. And literally, I pieced the plane together like it was a set of Legos. And that's how I outsmarted the system and got my hands on a $650,000 aircraft. You'll see in the next slide, this is what it looked like inside the plane. So the youngest person to fly around the world prior to me was 37 years of age. Of course, I worked with a great group of people to pull this off. And that suit that I'm wearing, for example, cost $20,000. That's a special survival suit to give me X amount of minutes to get myself out of the plane, out of the freezing water, and into a life raft. Had no weather radar, no de-icing. Back in 2007, when I set out on this journey, it was definitely a dangerous trip. Very fortunate to be alive. Had to be more than a pilot. I had to be a meteorologist, had to be a communicator. So many different challenges came about, but I had a chance to see the world, right? Flying around the world took me 97 days, 145 flight hours. I made 27 stops in 13 countries. After flying around the world, I decided to start working with young people, and we created what's called the flying classroom, where basically now I just transform our airplanes into a real life magic school bus and literally travel around the world exploring these amazing subjects. These might be subjects that you guys may be like, oh, I'm not too sure if I want to do this, right? But when you see it in real world context, it's a total difference. So what I want to do is play this quick video that kind of gives you a quick overview of who Flying Classroom is. By the way, this race car was built by middle school kids. Flying Classroom lead explorers and explorers. I just want to welcome you guys to a brand new school year. Flying Classroom is about to launch version 3.0 of our online portal. You're going to find a number of new expeditions our team accomplished all over the world. Quick question. Are you ready to engage and see us bring the world to your classroom? Are you ready to explore? And are you ready to innovate? I can't wait to see your engineering design challenges and for you all to realize your very own greatness. On to our next adventure, Blue Skies. So at Flying Classroom, we believe learning should be an experience. And I always ask myself, how do you use these things in life? So you'll see in the next slide, this is just a collage of some of the different expeditions we've done in different parts of the world. The right-hand side, for example, that's a 13-foot-long crocodile we worked with in Australia. And then in the middle, you'll see I'm holding a beautiful shell in my hand. That's a cone snail. We have no anti-venom on Earth that can break down its toxin. In order for me to explore these things, I have to utilize STEM Plus in so many different ways. We go to the next slide. And we also allow students to do that as well. So we're working with students from different parts of the country. You'll see in the next slide, whether they're in classrooms or they're at home, we're giving kids the opportunity to not only see it in action, but interact with it, providing materials and doing a number of different things as we explore the world together. Because learning should absolutely be an experience. You'll see in the next slide. And even the way that students are receiving materials and how's that distributed to them. We go to the next slide. So I want you guys to take a look at this. Kind of looks like a plane, kind of looks like a helicopter. Well, I'm doing a really special top secret project with Uber Air and Beta Technologies. Can't tell you what that is, but there's an interesting video I want to show you because the world of electrical engineering and technicians and so forth within the fields of aviation and aerospace is really expanding. So I want to play this quick Uber Air video for you. Now notice this woman, she's talking to her friend, and then she calls an Uber. So, okay, she's getting ready to catch a cab. Well, she does something interesting and starts to walk towards a building. Then she gets inside of the building and into an elevator. Why would you do that? Well, the way in which you guys are going to take Ubers is going to change. These are all electrical vertical takeoff and land vehicles. They're called eVTOLs. So it's an electrical airplane that will transport people from point A to point B. Why would Uber and Beta Technologies and all these different companies want to do this? Well, one of the things that kills their business is rush hour traffic. So they said, why not use the tops of buildings to transport people from point A to point B, get them there faster, and you're doing it in an electrical airplane and making more money in the process. I know you guys might be looking at this and saying, oh, this is 10 years away, 20 years away. I guarantee you're going to see this within the next 3 years. It's actually pretty awesome. You go to the next slide. So this is when we did to explore the human eye. What you see behind me is an aircraft, but that's not just any aircraft. That's transformed into a flying eye hospital. So we wanted to combine STEM Plus and empathy and show how you can also utilize these things to create a sense of empathy as well. So we go on to the next slide. And this was our patient, for example. The needle that's in his eye is about this long, and I'm not exaggerating. He went from being legally blind to next thing you know, within 13 hours, his vision went to 20/40. A lot of people, a lot of the world's blindness is easily curable. It's just that they don't have access to certain things. We go on to the next slide. This was an expedition we did to teach students about tectonic plates. So it's a very dangerous dive we did in Iceland, and that's me touching North America and Europe, both continental shelves at the same time. The next slide you'll see, this is one we did with sea snakes. Now, when we did this expedition, the country would not allow us to bring any anti-venom. We had to be extremely careful. The closest hospital was 8 hours away by airplane. Now, you might be wondering, all right, cool photos, but what makes it special? How does this aspect of the real world tie back to the classroom? Well, I want to show you a video clip that we have of a sea snake eating an eel twice its size, because there's something really special going on that actually affects everyone. Okay, so let's play this quick video clip. So I want you guys to notice this sea snake is biting this eel, right? But the eel is biting back and they're fighting away. And notice the eel does have a really powerful bite, but the sea snake has something much stronger. And what it has is venom. So right about at this point, the eel is not dead, it's paralyzed. The venom disconnected the signal between the eel's brain and its nervous system. So as much as it wants to fight, there is nothing it can do to get out of this situation. Now, what makes it special? Scientists realize if you alter the venom that comes from its fangs, as well as the snake's DNA, you can fight against heart attacks, heart disease, high blood pressure, and a number of other things. This is just a little bit of the things we explore as part of Flying Classroom. And I really encourage you guys to continue to explore the world of STEM Plus, because there's so much out there. Yes, there are are career opportunities, but these are amazing experiences that you can have with friends, with family, and with others. So with that said, that's just a little bit about what we do at Flying Classroom. And Justin, I'm actually pretty excited about answering some of the questions.
Captain Irving, that was a phenomenal presentation. You blew my mind with so many different things. You touched on STEM from every single angle, from aviation to engineering to scientific exploration to inspiring young minds with the future prospects. I love what you spoke about with the prospect of Uber Air. I've been looking at that for a while. Sounds like we're very much cut from the same cloth, and I'm super excited to hear your perspective on a number of questions that we have from our audience. So now it's time for some of those questions. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions to Captain Irving. And if you have new questions for Captain Irving, send them to us now using the form at usasciencefestival.org, and we'll get the captain's answers to you after the program. So for our first question, we have a video from one of our viewers, and let's hear that video now.
Hello, Captain Irving. My name is Marcel, and I'm from Washington, D.C., and I'm coming to ask you, how do you become a pilot? Do you need a specific college degree?
Awesome question,
Wow,
Marcel. Let's go ahead and hear from you, Captain.
Yes, that's a great question. So for my flight training, I majored in aeronautical science. If I was to do it over again, I would have majored in business and then just taken my flight training classes. But that's what fit my personality. You do not have to major with a specific aviation degree. However, you will have to take the aviation related classes. So that you will have to take. And so it's not mandatory. It does make it easier. It is a bit harder to be doing flight training and then you also have another degree program. But if I was to do it over again, I definitely major in something else and then do my flight training at the same time at a flight school or part of the university with a different major.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, Captain Irving. And we have another awesome video question coming up from one of our viewers.
Hi, Captain Barrington. I was just flying by and I had a question for you. How can I be the youngest girl to go in outer space? Do you have any tips for me?
Wow, that's an awesome question. So space travel is a very real thing. Not only through federal government with NASA, but so many companies now are creating ways in which to travel to space efficiently. Now, one of the things, yes, you're gonna have to be really sharp on your math, on your science. Do not sleep on those subjects, as well as literacy. A lot of people don't realize, especially young people don't realize how important communication skills are. Reading comprehension is a very big thing. Whether you're flying a plane or a space shuttle, it's a very big thing. You have to understand what you're reading and what these things mean, especially when you have an emergency. But I think one of the things that really helps the most, in addition to taking these subjects seriously, is also getting involved in different STEM programs, whether it's summer camps, space camps. You also have opportunities through different mentorship programs. There's so many organizations, right? For example, there's Women in Aviation. That's just one example. There's so many different organizations that you can work with and find people from these professional backgrounds to collaborate with.
Awesome, Captain. And yo, how dope was that video, man? That was crazy.
Yeah, that video is spot on.
Right. We have time for one more question from our audience, and Adriana is going to take it away with this next video.
Hello, Captain Irving. My name is Adriana. I'm from Washington, D.C. And how long does it take to get your license to fly a plane?
Wow, great question. So your first license, if money is not an issue, you could get it done in 2 to 3 months if money is not an issue Typically, it takes 3, 4, 5 months. If you know you have to save up and pay type of deal to get all your licenses. If money is not an issue, to be quite honest, from your private pilot's license to your instrument, commercial, multi-engine, I'd say in 18 months you can wrap up everything. And that also includes your flight instructor rating as well. So of course, that is if money is not an issue. But if money becomes a challenge in order for you to pay for it, it can take 2 years or 3 years, you know, but you go at the pace that makes sense. And, you know, there's such a shortage for aviation professionals as a whole, not just pilots. Yes, pilots get a lot of the attention, but technicians, engineers, there's a tremendous shortage within aviation and aerospace. So I really encourage you guys to consider these STEM-related career fields. And also, we need more women. We need more minorities. There's no question when you look at aviation, that is a big deal and a big need as well. So, but I'm just wishing you blue skies as you chase that journey.
Thank you for those positive words, Captain Irving. And thank you, everybody who submitted questions for today. Those were awesome. And that's all the time we're going to have today for questions. So remember, if you have another question for Captain Irving that we didn't cover today, send them to us now using the form at usasciencefestival.org, and we'll get the captain's answers to you after the program. Captain Irving, phenomenal presentation. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you virtually, e-meeting you. Hopefully I get to meet you in person one day, and hearing your story was
Absolutely
awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, give Captain Irving a virtual high five, a virtual round of applause. And we are, again, just absolutely appreciative of your story and sharing your moments with us. We're inspired. Our next presenter is Dr. JihnFen Lei, the Acting Director of Defense Research and Engineering for Research and Technology at the U.S. Department of Defense. Dr. Lei, who is responsible for tech strategy and investment, says, if you use the internet, you're using tech developed by the DoD. DoD STEM careers run the gamut, from life, social, and physical sciences to computer, mechanical, and electrical engineering to architecture to health practitioners and technicians and more. Woo! Let's listen in to Dr. Lei for more.
Hi, I'm JihnFen Lei from the Department of Defense. My job here in the DoD is to oversee all of our science and technology research. And I have been privileged to work at NASA, in industry, and now here in DoD. What I can tell you is that if I can make a successful and satisfying career in STEM, so can you. That's because there's never been a more exciting time to be in STEM. New technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum science, and 5G can revolutionize our lives and our societies. They can help bring about things like self-driving cars, virtual reality, ubiquitous high-speed connectivity, and more. Together, we can demonstrate the importance of scientific discovery and engineering prowess to expanding humankind's knowledge and universe. This is very important because over the next 10 years, 80% of jobs will require STEM skills. DoD has a very extensive science and technology enterprise and explores the majority of scientists and engineers in the federal government. Currently, there are nearly 300,000 scientists and engineers in DoD. That's about as many people total lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. About a quarter of our scientists and engineers work in one of our 63 DoD laboratories and centers around the country. It is my job to oversee their work and help them get the equipment and resources they need to do their job. But our labs and centers are only as good as the people in them, and that's where you come in. We need a lot of smart people like you to come in to work with us on the most challenging problems facing the nation. We have a very intensive STEM education and outreach program. Our STEM programs leverage the department's STEM professionals who engage in STEM activities to share their educational and career experience to inspire future generations. It is a great way to support our national security. DoD has a unique role to play in supporting STEM education. We recognize the need for students to strengthen their understanding of STEM disciplines earlier in their educational experience and develop critical 21st century skills. DoD STEM programs are available for both students and educators of all age groups, including kindergarten through 12th grade, K-12, and post-secondary, undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral students. You may not know it, but DoD was responsible for inventing the Global Positioning Systems, or GPS technology. It's the technology that's in every cell phone that tells you and your parents where you are. It also helps you buy things online, pay your bills, do your banking, and more. DoD is committed to supporting the current and next generation of STEM talent through a near-term education and workforce development programs. The Science, Mathematics, and Research for Transformation, or SMART program, exemplifies the DoD STEM pathway opportunities from academia to workforce. SMART is a DoD scholarship for service program in STEM disciplines. SMART provides full tuition awards for students attending any regional accredited universities or colleges across the U.S. As part of the SMART experience, scholars engage in internships that allow for relevant hands-on experience in DoD laboratories and facilities, thereby enhancing their educational experience. Two examples of the kind of work being done in our labs can be found on the DoD STEM website. Dr. Turan Corral is a research physicist working on metamaterials. He points out that you don't have to have a PhD to conduct cutting-edge research at DoD labs. Dr. Leslie Belha works in creating mathematical and statistical modeling of decision-making processes. She notes there are a great many opportunities available. SMART scholars are guaranteed employment at one of the 63 DoD labs and centers following their academic degree completion. There, the scholars can work on basic and applied research to help strengthen our national security. In any given year, DoD has approximately 2,000 students from high school to graduate levels in college participating in paid research internships, apprenticeships across the DoD laboratory enterprise. DoD STEM Education Initiative aligns with the department's need of a diverse STEM talent pool, readily accessible to serve our nation and enhance the department's competitive edge. There are many more programs, scholarships, and opportunities available at DoD than I can mention here. Be sure to check out the rest of the DoD STEM website to learn more. Thank you for your interest in STEM education, and I hope to work with you in the near future. Again, welcome to the festival and enjoy your time here.
Thank you, Dr. Lay, for sharing that message with us today. And thank you again to the U.S. Department of Defense for your support of this program. I hope this program has inspired you to dream big and take the next step by visiting usasciencefestival.org/next-steps for free STEM resources for today's speakers, our partners, and more. Here you'll find a list of free resources for students to help guide and enhance your own STEM journey. Check it out. And for the educators in the audience, you'll also find materials you can use in the classroom here as well. I'd like to thank again our generous partners at AstraZeneca, DoD STEM, and the U.S. Air Force for supporting this XSTEM All Access program. I hope you have enjoyed today's third episode of this XSTEM All Access series. Don't forget to tune in at the same time tomorrow for our final episode, Deep Sea Science, featuring marine biologist Dr. Mike Heithaus and shark tracking expedition leader Chris Fisher. It has been a blast meeting another amazing group of STEM mentors. If you missed any of the sessions, the entire series will be available on demand at no cost. Visit usasciencefestival.org for more. Mark your calendars for these upcoming programs from the USA Science and Engineering Festival. Get ready for another XSTEM All Access in September. Educators, join us in May and November for the Inspire Educators Workshop Series, hosted by world champion magician and host of Impossible Science at Home, Jason Latimer. And don't miss the SciFest Virtual Expo in October. Visit usasciencefestival.org for more information. And don't forget to show us how you STEM. Tag at USA Science Fest and me at Mr. Fascinate and use the hashtag to show us how you STEM and XSTEM. Thank you for joining us from around the globe. Each and every one of us has the ability to change the world. We can't wait to see what the future holds for all of you, the next generation of innovators. See you all tomorrow.